Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with a video to discuss the Amethyst patch and see some Amethyst Wizard gameplay. So this time around we are in Gorgazon playing as the Empire against Brettonia. But before we kick things off, one of the things I wanted to note for those of you guys who maybe downloaded the patch and then realized you couldn't get access to the Amethyst Wizard, it just didn't appear. I had that same issue myself. There's been a whole bunch of stuff floating around on the forums about how you should fix having to install Warhammer 1, that sort of stuff. Maybe that works in certain cases. For me personally, all I had to do was restart Steam, and I got access to the Amethyst Wizard after not getting access immediately. So before you guys are diving in to reinstall old games or whatever, keep that in mind. Try to just restart Steam. If you haven't gotten access to the Amethyst Wizard already. Supposedly CA is working on a fix for this, but I don't know how long that's going to take. So just a little summed up advisory there to begin with. But either way, for this build, going against Brettonia, I wanted to try out the Amethyst Wizard. Now personally, I don't think the Amethyst Wizard is that big of a change for the Empire. Empire already has access to a huge chunk of Lords of Magic. Quite frankly, Lord of Death has really dropped off. It used to be the king tier magic, now it's kind of a mid tier magic. And the stuff Lord of Death is good against, Empire's already very good at, so you don't really need Lord of Death. Stuff like killing elite cavalry, Empire has guns, Empire has the best cavalry in the game, essentially. So that's not a problem for them. Killing single entities, Empire already has that ability. Sure, there's some buffs here and there, and certainly I think there's some nasty potential synergy with Doom and Darkness and spells like that, but despite that, I really do think the lore simply isn't that useful for Empire. But I want to give it a shot. I figure Brettonia is a good choice because there's a good chance we'll see some elites running around, and we can nuke them with Spear Leech. So going over the build for my Lord, it's pretty standard composition. Karl Franz running around with Golem Raz, Reichland Runefang, stand your ground, hold the line, and that is it. He's on a horse because you really don't need Franz on a better mount. People like to bring on Deathclaw and stuff. Honestly, Deathclaw's kind of overkill unless you really want that mobility, but I don't think so. When you're just running around with a Goon Squad, I just don't think it's that useful. Alongside him, we got a Warrior Priest. This bad boy's got Benediction to keep our Demigriffs in the line because their leadership just isn't the best. We got Hammer of Sigmar, of course, to buff our melee attack. We do have Scroll of Power to rewind all of our abilities. Soulfire, as well as Shield of Faith. And of course, Soulfire is just there to deny Grail Knights and magic and that sort of thing. Now, besides that, the Amethyst Wizard, as mentioned, he is running around with a pretty good selection of spells. I did bring Life Leeching, Spirit Leech, brought Doom and Darkness, figuring in case my opponent brings like a massive infantry mob, break their leadership quick, and then Soul Blight to nuke down, especially if my opponent with like a Grail Knight mob, be able to debuff their weapon damage. Also debuff enemy armor if in case my infantry or Empire Knights are struggling a bit. For the rest of the build, well, front line is simply, well, we got the two Demigriffs here, one unit of normal halberds, one of the Griffites, so definitely some powerful units. Sigmar's Sons, as well as spears with shields in the front, a whole bunch of spears on the flanks, just there to sort of protect the Hammer of Witches, which is the centerpiece here, and then two units of Empire Knights on the flanks to zone away light cav or to chase after enemy backlines, disrupt enemy heavy cav, that sort of thing. Now for my opponent, he decided to go with a very boxy and interesting build. In fact, he's rolling with the Prophetess of Heavens, which she's an interesting lord. I don't think she's bad, but I definitely do think you don't want to be bringing too many elites. Like in this case, you bring Rail Knights and Chevron of Questing Knights, so I don't think that's really her forte. But she is bringing her with all of her spells, perhaps a newer player, so I think that's a bit of a mistake. She does have all her items too, including Salt of Stone, Channeling Staff, Rolling Skies, which is going to be useless. I don't think it's really worth bringing against Empire, and Aura of the Lady for that magic resist. Besides that, we do have the Wardens of Montfort Vanguard here to harass. On one flank, it's Questing Knights and Grail Knights. On the other, Questing Knights are the Companions of Canal, as well as Knights Errant. So a pretty potent cavalry force, certainly not on par with mine, but still enough to be a threat. The front line is just a horde of Spearmen with shields, so they can soak up missile fire, they can time down my boys, but they're certainly not going to be winning any fights with Sigmar's Sons. They are backed, though, by a horde of Peasant Bows, mix of Pox Arrows, as well as normal Peasant Bows, and then we do have Peasant Mobs in the back. So it's a very wide, very numerous army. My opponent outnumbers me almost 2 to 1, or perhaps it even is 2 to 1. So we're going to start shaving out some of these numbers. You can see the Grail Knights there getting hammered by the Hammer of the Witches, no pun intended. And these guys are just having a horrible time of it. One thing I do want to bring to attention as the fight is sort of bringing in on itself is sort of coming, or the lines are sort of meeting, is the fact that the Amethyst Wizard in fact has way more HP than normal Empire Wizards, and I think this is simply a mistake on CA's part. They're probably going to fix it next patch, but currently I think he has like 850 or something more HP than other Empire Wizards. So if you're really bad at protecting your casters, right now, at least for this patch, until it gets fixed, unless it gets like hot fixed, when CA fixes the Amethyst Wizard's availability, this guy is currently really tanky for a caster. You can see there he's got 3,800 HP, where a normal caster will have about 3,000 on a horse. In the meantime, the Hammer Witches does get focused very heavily. Assault of Stone does go down, and it has been doing a great job here, whittling down the Grand Lights, already knocking down 12 models, or 16, if we count some of the Wards of Montfort hit. You can see a Wind Blast there going in, so my opponent is spending massive amounts of Winds of Magic and sort of spells and abilities just to whittle it down. I don't really think it's worth it, personally, to just focus down the Hammer Witches like this, though I guess he is very concerned about how much damage it's doing to his Grand Lights, and it's certainly doing some work here. I do try to dodge, but it's simply too little too late. We're not able to juke, and we get nuked, and you can see the crew is basically gone. It routes 10 models, almost no HP. So yeah, we basically lost our boys there, and you can see some arrows are going to go in and finish off the stragglers. So definitely just a bit of a mess. In the meantime, though, we are going to come in on the enemy cab. You can see we're pushing forward with our Griffs and Franz and the Priest. I don't really care too much about the Archers because, of course, the Demiurge Knights just have so much armor. And unfortunately for my opponent, he is keeping a lot of his cav way in the back, so the Companions of Canal and the Knights Errant are way out of position. And because of that, we're getting really close here. You can see we're actually dropping a Spirit Leech on these Questing Knights, taking away models. Every tick is killing a model. So you're able to take like 7 models off a cav unit like this very, very efficiently. And my opponent, even if he had brought healing, wouldn't be able to bring him back. In the meantime, here in the pit fight, it's going to be a mess. But obviously, Sigmar's Sons are going to be a huge boon there. And in the meantime, the Empire Knights are swinging around for those meaty charges. And you can see over here the Empire Knights committing to the center. As our big blob hits this Peasant Mob tried to soak up the charge, so good distraction for my opponent. But we're simply going to break their leadership, tear out them, and then push through to the Archers and force my opponent to make a move. This cavalry is still out of position. It's way too far. And this cavalry is going to be forced to commit. And once it's sort of a big blob fight, the Empire Captains do better, just because it does have some very good sustained melee stats. Now, unfortunately, we have taken a bit of a pounding from all those Archers. Our Empire Knights are still working their way around the flank. But with Franz in here, with Priests in there, with all the support, we should be able to do well. You can see Spirit Leech going in on the Grail Lights, melting them further. We actually get a bit of a counter charge, bogging them down, and now we are going to start dropping our buffs. So you can see full buffs going down. Soulfire is going to go down, deny that magic damage a whole bunch. Questing Knights are not going to have a good time of it. The Wardens of Montfort are in there. I'm not entirely sure what they're trying to do, but they're getting decimated. And in the meantime, Grand Lights are basically gone. Now, my opponent does get a nice little Comet of Casandora there, but it does also do some friendly fire, I think. And it was mostly focused on like Franz and the Priest, which means it didn't do too much to the Griffites and the Demigriffs, who are really the main priority here. And now my opponent has essentially lost 2 of his most elite cats. So the Grand Lights are gone, the Questing Knights are gone, and that's leaving just the only unit that can carry at this point is the Companions of Canal. Now that said, my opponent is dropping another bombardment here, just barraging me. He's got, we do counteract with Soul Blight, which is really nice. It's not really going to help against the Companions of Canal, but especially against the Knights Errant and the lower end troops, it's going to be a bit of a boon. It's going to drop their weapon strength quite a bit. And we keep barraging my opponent with Spirit Leeches, so you can see the Companions of Canal there losing models to Spirit Leech. Spirit Leech is just such a brutal spell. And the Demigriff Knights, they are getting whittled down. They've been taking so much archery fire at this point. The Companions of Canal, a very solid unit. Because they've got physical resist, they've got very high weapon strength, very good melee stats. I think they actually beat Griffites or normal Demigriff Halberds 1v1, though I could be wrong, don't quote me on that. But fortunately for us, we do have Franz in there, and Franz is just able to go to town on these guys. Franz really, with his beat stick, he can really put the stomp down on these units like Knights Errant, Questing Knights. This is why I really love bringing Karl instead of a Warrior Priest or instead of an Arch-Lector, because Karl's just going to commit and do a lot of damage here, especially once the Griffites here are going to start breaking. Now, unfortunately, though, the Griffites are starting to break, which is definitely a little unfortunate, but we have largely compromised the backline. You can see the Knights going ham, doing whatever the hell they feel like. Unfortunately, these Demigriffs are basically gone, but another Spirit Leech goes down on the Companions, and they are basically goners. They're removed from play. So at this stage, my opponent's army is largely broken. Sigmar's Sons swinging in. The Empire Knights here kind of absorbing the shock and just soaking up these spears. Empire Knights, not the best melee stats for sure, but 110 armor is a valuable asset in and of itself. Unfortunately, the Griffites here are going to lay down their lives fighting these Knights Errant. At this point, they're so low on HP, especially with the charge bonus. Knights Errant are doing a lot of work. We are going to get Franz and the Warrior Priest in there, though, and they're going to be able to finish these guys off. At this point, the match is definitely basically won. Certainly, Balance of Power is not quite out of my opponent's favor, but there just isn't much he can do. Most of his power is tied up in these infantry. We still have 2 very healthy units of Empire Knights who are more than adequate to wipe out trash. He basically has no ammo on his Wardens of Montfort. Sure, He's got some Knights Errant running away over there, but by and large, the simple fact is we still do have the Warrior Priest, we still do have Karl Franz. Karl Franz is incredibly healthy right now. And hilariously enough, Karl on a horse has less HP than the Lord of Deathcaster. So the Amethyst Wizard has about 3,800 HP. He's just crazy. You can see up to 44 kills, and most of those were with Spirit Leeches, most of those against Elite Cav, so easily paying for himself this game with his use of Winds of Magic. In the meantime, Sigmar's Sons here bogging my opponent down. We're kind of sweeping in from all flanks with the spears. Really not much to be said. It's basically clean up in aisle 9. One slightly humorous incident is out here on the flank where the last Griff fight, I was trying to get him to just chase these errands off the field. He dives in, rear charges. I thought the rear charge would break them. I thought it would be a terror out. He actually kills a model and is then chased from the field. So it is what it is. He's shattered. He tried. He tried his hardest. They've already paid their dues, really, the Griff fights. But that was a bit of a funny situation. I thought I could chase the Knights Errant off and beat Sheep and get Franz and the Priest back in, but it didn't work. But we were able to get in on these Knights Errant, club a few over the head with our Warhammers, and make them reconsider their life choices and run away. In the meantime, there really isn't much left. It's simply a pit fight here, and we're actually going to fast forward a little bit because it's just clean up in aisle 9 at this stage. You can see the Prophetess here chasing after my Wizard, trying to get in on him. I don't know if we chase her Benny Hill action because Karl Franz in there. Finally, we are going to commit here. We are going to cast some spells. We're going to cast our Soulfire, get in to club the Grail Relic, which is keeping my opponent in the fight. And yeah, that's going to be game. The Grail Relic, you can see a Wind Blast there going down, but it's too little too late. It's just not going to cut the mustard. The Prophetess does come down, but she's going to get surrounded by Knights. And it's going to be a close victory for the Empire. So, certainly not the best play on my part. My use of the Hammer Witches was definitely a bit sloppy. I got it killed very early on for very little gain. Certainly I could have probably timed my protective spells a bit better on the Grave Fights, just to keep them alive against the sequential charges and the magic nukes a bit better. But that said, once again, this build is pretty good. The Amethyst Wizard, I think this is one of the niche matches. Now, obviously, right now he's OP as far as HP goes. And hilariously enough, I think his HP, I think what it was is that his HP, that was supposed to be his Ultra HP, and they accidentally made it his large HP. So, and you can actually see here, it's displaying as full HP, even though he didn't enter that match on full HP. He was actually down by about a quarter, so I just think it's bugged and needs to be fixed. Hopefully it'll be hot fixed in the next patch. But I do think that some of these matches, especially like High Elves, where obviously Ilario is going to spam heals and try to slide out oftentimes with like a Fireborn. Or against Grail Knights and against Brettonia. Against these elite cap factions, you can get a little bit of an edge out of it. Now, do I think Lore of Death is the way to go? Maybe not, to be honest. Like, Lore of Light is very strong. You've got Lore of Life, which is still very strong despite the nerfs to Earthblood. It's just every lore. Empire just has so many good lores. And honestly, the fact is, Griff Fights will beat most Cav on their own. So I don't know. I do think it's cool just to have that option though. And in this game, 44 kills, most of those against elite cavalry. Being able to chip down Grail Knights. If you kill 7 models of Grail Knights for an 8 Winds of Magic Spirit Leech, that's a solid trade. That's weakening them a huge amount. It's even more powerful against High Elves because you're denying that heal, plus you're denying them martial prowess, or making it much easier to strip martial prowess from them. So I could see these being niche matchups where it's a very useful spell. That said, whether or not you think it's worthwhile, that just remains to be weighted. Now, I did want to mention once again, before I wrap up this video, if you guys have not downloaded the patch, didn't get access to the Amethyst Wizard, supposedly he's working on a patch. Either way, restarting Steam worked for me. Other people have said that installing, and if that doesn't work, perhaps installing Warhammer 1 could help. It's not guaranteed. I only know what worked for me. And I don't want to give false hope here, but at the same time, if you guys are struggling or you're not entirely sure why you haven't gotten the Amethyst Wizard, and you want to at least try to get access, that's my recommendations. Restart Steam first of all, then maybe reinstall Warhammer 1, just so the game can confirm that you have already own Warhammer 1, because that's supposedly where the issue lies. Oh, and I guess to revise, this did show kind of just how powerful Empire Knights can be when you just let them go ham. So in this game, because my opponent was forced to, and it was actually something I wanted to highlight and just kind of slipped my mind. But this game, because my opponent was so focused on my Griff Fights and my Demigriffs, he didn't get in on my Knights, and the Knights just went ham, slaughtered the Peasant Foes, did huge amounts of damage to Spearmen and the Peasant Mobs, and really showed just how much they can shine for such a cheap cavalry. As for my opponent's build, really my main critique, I think Grail Knights are not worth it against Empire. And I think, obviously, just don't bring all your spells on the Prophetess. I understand that, like, you want to try different spells out and whatnot, but you really do not need 6 spells. You could easily, even if you want to go super offensive, like my opponent was going there with his spells, sure, go super offensive, but you don't need all of your offensive spells. Bring, like, 3 of them. You can do, like, 2 offensive and a defensive spell or something, and you'll still be in a very good spot. Besides that, not really too much critique. These swarming builds can work against Empire. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan. You can definitely swarm Empire, don't get me wrong. But when push comes to shove, I do prefer elite builds. I think it's generally better to go with Questing Knights mixed in with some Knights Errant, Knights of the Realm to compromise backlines, because a lot of Empire players will bring backlines. This build would struggle to breach a backline, I think. And the other thing is Grey Knights are very easy to counter for Empire with Warrior Priest. So Hippogriffs, very strong. That's another thing. Empire cannons, especially if your opponent brings multiple cannons, will really screw up normal cav. So Questing Knights are just cheap enough to where you don't care too much. And Hippogriffs can tank cannonballs. So it's like the best of both worlds. Grail Knights are just very expensive. They bleed models, and it's not what you want happening. Regardless, well played to Razzle Dazzle here. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you found it entertaining. Hopefully it helps you guys out if you're struggling to get access to the Amethyst Wizard. And if you have any comments, criticism, questions, any further advice for people who might be struggling to get the Amethyst Wizard or suffering from this bug, leave it down in the comments. We're trying to help people here, so leave it down there. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.